but I think that it's a hard balance, right, between being patient and drawing clarity on decision day. You know, over the past month, I think Karen and I.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys about Married at First Sight and dealing with Miles and Karen at the cabin. And we're going to talk about some things around their relationship as well. It's probably part 1 of 2 or 3 from this particular episode. Guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure you like, you share, you subscribe, and you click on the bell button for a notification of the uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, well, you already know the motto, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's talk about it. And let's talk about it. So, indeed, we saw this particular episode where they got to the cabin and everyone came together, did kumbaya around the table to talk about Black Lives Matter. Obviously, this has been filmed months beforehand, where we have, as the audience, have experienced and gone through Black Lives Matter and gone through the whole emotional, physical, spiritual, I would say, trauma that we felt around this issue, okay? And we get to see Miles take the bull by the horns and begin to bring a discussion to the table. And what I found to be quite powerful is that unless you are emotionally intelligent, this conversation can go a whole different direction. When you are dealing with other races who are going to be involved in the conversation, especially those who are the oppressors in terms of race, then you can get this conversation very polarized and become all about what you and your people have done.
We have to engage and we have to pretend as if this stuff isn't bothering us or affecting us. I think as Black people, we're expected to show up and be...
Even though it's not them specifically. Right? And then it becomes a conversation which is about bashing and blaming rather than speaking about or authenticating and explaining and expressing the trauma and the triggering that happens to a Black male or female. And I felt like, obviously, with Miles coming to the table and being articulated enough to be able to dispense how he felt and how this impacted him, take depression out of this. This is how he felt. I think even for myself in the UK, that's how we felt. We may not be oppressed as such in terms of getting killed every day on the streets that we see in America, but in the UK we felt the vibrations of it, because we do see racism, we do see colorism, we do see injustice, we do see police brutality in some shape or form. So we could understand, and you have to understand is that I'm looking at my neighbor on the screen on a TV, and I know that any minute it could be me. I may not be in US, but at any moment, if our police decide to move mad the way they're moving mad, it could be me.
I'm there, and I wanted to make sure that it was clear that that's where I'm at right now, and I think that was helpful for me to get off my chest. This weekend is an exercise in...
And so there is a traumatic feeling of then reliving these moments. And so for Miles to be able to articulate how he felt, how that made him feel, and what that meant for him as a Black male, it spoke not only for himself, but it spoke for Karen, it spoke for Woody, and it spoke for Armani in such a way that they didn't need to speak. And but before that, obviously, Karen had even stated herself that she didn't really feel like going to the cabin. She didn't really feel like being in the presence of other people. But you know what? They're glad they came out in the end. And I think what Miles did, again, just made that trip worthwhile, because he explained how they felt. Something that he had once been said was too emotional for a relationship. But this is quintessential for us as an audience to watch when we're going to our relationships, because emotional intelligence allows for these type of conversations to not go left. You're able to articulate how you feel and how something makes you feel. It's absolutely important when you're dealing with a relationship. And so with Miles and Karen, and again, this is a conversation that Miles has had with Karen in terms of emotional intelligence, which she said is compatible with masculinity. Okay? And so, she spoke, Karen said obviously that, during the quarantine, she felt it very difficult to open up and really be, I guess, expressive, emotional with Miles. Sis, I'm going to be very frank with you. You haven't been that way all season. So quarantine didn't make a difference. And I think this is where, again, we're assessing, a change of behavior. There hasn't been any. I always say this, the pressure cooker often takes us back to our natural behavior, yeah, our natural defense mechanisms, our natural things that are, I would say, they're learned, but they are instinctive as well. So if you're naturally not a feely touchy kind of person, which Karen isn't, you're naturally not going to be a feely touchy person in quarantine. Nothing's going to change. Like look, during quarantine, me and the missus, nothing changed. If anything, it was a blessing. It's like we call each other and speak for hours on end. So when quarantine came, I was speaking for hours on end. It made no difference. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, you're going to do what you instinctively know how to do. Quarantine didn't stop her from doing something. Like I've seen some comments as well where someone said, like, you know, quarantine has made people react in a different way. I'm like, nah, quarantine only exposed who you truly are. You know, expose who some people really are, and the fact that they don't know how to communicate, and therefore we're seeing a lot of as you guys have seen in the celebrity world, a lot of divorces have happened through this particular quarantine, and it's because people realize they didn't know how to communicate, and when they don't know how to communicate, they get frustrated. When you get frustrated, you get exasperated. When you get exasperated, then things blow out of proportion, right?
Actually, amidst this pandemic and everything going on, like, we're all kind of living in a pressure cooker.
Yeah,
you know?
That's right.
And so, you know, I keep saying to you guys, the question we're now having to ask ourselves about Karen, especially in episode 14 now, we're now what? And at episode 14, they're 4 months in. Yeah? I want you to understand it. They're the longest running Married at First Sight couples. 4 months in. If you haven't figured out how to get intimate in certain without having sex, and I'm talking about an intimacy on a physical level where you can hug, touch hands, you know what I'm saying, things like that, and you haven't figured it out after 4 months, you may not figure this out for the rest of your life, because it should have been something that you've used your, I will call it, your early days energy. You know, that adrenaline that you have in your relationship, you should use it to help figure out how do we navigate this issue, so we build a strong foundation in this area. Okay. And so what was really interesting for me was to watch how when Miles was washing the dishes, Amani came straight through, and I think this is what Amani and Woody do really well with each other. And again, I said about the fact that you know, I don't feel it's a love language situation with Karen, and here's why. Because, you know, she's able to throw compliments with Amani. You know, she's able. Not only that, Woody and Amani exhibit more than 2 love languages. Why? Because inevitably in a relationship, you are going to express love in different forms. You may have a stronger input and stronger output in terms of the 2, primary and secondary, but you will have other outputs. Look, my love language is not gifts, but I can buy you a gift. Do you know what I mean? Like, my love language isn't, what do you call it, necessarily physical touch. It's not my first one. But I do a lot of hugging, a lot of kissing. I like them kind of things. It's part of a relationship, right? And so when Amani sees when Amani sees Miles washing, what does she say to him? She goes, "Oh, Miles, you're like the best washer ever, the fastest washer ever.
Miles, you're the best dishwasher we ever had. It's like fast, efficient."
Hey, he's the only dishwasher we've ever had. Wait till I...
Now, I know that was making Miles feel some way. I know that made Miles feel happy. Why? Because obviously, first of all, his words of affirmation, love language. And 2, it wasn't a forced comment. It wasn't a forced compliment. It was in front of everybody as well. It showcased him in a good light. And that is something that is, you know, and not only that, Woody did the exact same thing at the table. Woody said exact same thing to Karen. Karen had cooked food, and Woody had said, "Oh
my God, Karen, something in that blacking.
That black
butter.
good.
It was in that butter. I love it. I love
Everyone
the
who
food.
cooked.
you know, this food is amazing. You know, Karen, you're special about that, about this kind of food, etc., right?" So you're seeing a couple who are great with each other, also exploring avenues to bless others with words. It's not difficult. I'll be real with you. The basic necessity of relationships, we do tell each other, "Oh, you look good. Oh, you look nice. Oh, that suits you. I'm not sure about this." Like, it's necessity. If we're all up in here talking about how we need to talk more and get to know each other, and you can't compliment within that, I find it difficult. You're bailing for more quality conversation to get to know the person. but you're unable to compliment the person. That's for me is a little bit techie. Why? Because to be emotionally and to be able to have, and she said herself later on, that I'm really feeling the fact that we're having more, real and authentic conversations. But then you can't compliment, sis. And we're 4 months in, sis. Now someone's gonna say, I don't want to hear slow. That's not slow. That's a problem, and we need to analyze what this problem is. Okay. Miles also, Miles went on to later on as well. Miles also said, he complimented Karen. Complimented Karen on her cooking as well. We've heard him compliment her on her cooking before. He said it episodes beforehand where they all came round, and he said obviously that Karen literally got up and cooked us a full-on meal. So we know that when it comes to food cooking, Karen's really on point. She loves that. She loves her kitchen. She's told Miles as well that's her area. Stay back. Let me be who I need to be, and I respect that. And so, Miles offers that compliment about her food, calling it karaoke, right? And again, somebody who's suffering with the ability to compliment, someone might say she doesn't find them attractive. I would also say as well, there could be a traumatic experience in the fact that, I think I mentioned some episodes back where I reviewed it, I said, the reason why someone might not be able to say these things is because it wasn't said to them. So that's why I said to you about this traditional male. Is it really traditional or is it toxic? Because when you get to a place where you're struggling to compliment someone else and almost have hater syndrome because you can't say it, your mouth is wired shut, right? You have to really think, what events did you go through? What environment did you come in? Which means it was very hard to come by, maybe emotionally, to hear words of affirmation in your household. Yeah, probably not a boyfriend situation, probably a household situation. Yeah, and that stiff upper lip, that traditional male that you're talking about, okay, actually has traces of probably toxicity. And so now when you're coming in a relationship to now just compliment, simple small compliment. Why is it another woman? And I've told you guys as well, don't let another woman celebrate your man more than you do. And man them, don't let another man compliment your woman more than you do. Right? Men love to deal with accolades, right? So when we're dealing with masculine energy, and I'm talking about masculine energy, doesn't mean you're more masculine. We're talking about masculine energy in general, right? When men are dealing with their accolades and their pride and joy and what they've achieved and what goals they've hit, right? As a woman, your job there is to compliment him on the path that he's taken, on the goals he's set and the goals that he's achieving and the things that he's hitting. You compliment him on that, yeah? And he gets gassed. Yeah, because remember, men are very task-orientated. Men often, and masculine energy often leads with task-orientated. We want to complete things. Yeah, we want to hunt and achieve the hunt and get the specific goal by achieving this target that we've set. Right, and as a woman, when you wanna soak in some feminine energy, right? As a woman, remember, I'm talking about masculine and feminine energy. Both parties need masculine and feminine energy. Let me make that very, very clear for some of you, because some of you are gonna mix it. Both parties need both masculine and feminine energy. God said that in male and female, he made them in his image. Both of them are required to make the image of God. They're not alone. Both are the image of God. Together, two becoming one. All right, masculine energy. Now, to rest in some feminine energy, you as a lady, you compliment him on the goals that he's achieved. If he's a head teacher like Miles is, you say, listen, well done for being one of the youngest head teachers in the country. You're 26 and you're thinking, what, amazing. I'm proud of you. I respect the hustle that you've put on. I'm telling you, this guy will eat at the palm of your hands, right? In the right environment, guys. And similarly too, as a man, as Miles is trying to do, when you see that woman looking glowing and she looks fine and she looks amazing and she looks beautiful to you, you express, darling, you're looking nice today, No, you're looking nice. I like the way that your dress is falling on you. You know what I'm saying? You show appreciation and gratitude, babe. I love the fact you know what I mean? Like, for instance, Karen likes cooking.
We be making menus over at the Williams household. That karaoke? That karaoke, boy.
Like he says, karaoke. You know what I'm saying? You saw a little smile across her face, right? Like, those things. When you can't accept that, okay? When you can't accept those compliments at that point, we have to ask a question. What is preventing you from accepting a compliment? People there are people that can give out compliments. This is me. You can give out compliments, but struggle to receive.
Karen Durant. Balling. I learned something new about Karen every day. Who knew she was a professional?
Them, yeah? And actually it's about self-worth. Woo, let's go there today. Y'all want to make me go in the review? Let's go.
I think he's very handsome.
Don't tell me that, girl. Thank you.
Stop it.
There. When you're dealing with somebody who can give out compliments, or even who can't give out compliments, but also can't receive it, it's about self-worth and how you self-perceive yourself. So you actually internally don't perceive yourself to be of worth. That's why you don't accept the compliment, because you don't truly believe it yourself, right? And you don't want to accept it because that's not how you see yourself. Ooh, come on. Come on. How someone else is viewing you and how you viewing yourself is now affecting how you accept that compliment. So now when we're dealing with the Miles and Karen situation, when Karen can't give that compliment, it could be that, yes, she doesn't feel that Miles is worthy of that compliment, but it could also mean as well, she is reflecting how she feels about herself and projecting that onto him, so therefore she can't compliment. I told you guys a story about when my dad, went and preached a powerful sermon, and it was lit. Inside of me, I wanted to say to him, it was amazing. But I was restricted because the type of relationship we had, he was like Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell. You get a compliment from him, you hold on to it because you ain't gonna get many, right? And we've heard Miles say this. You rarely get a compliment from Karen, so you have to relish it.
See, compliments are like hard to come by, Pastor Cal.
Really?
Yeah. So it's,
right? And so, and the reason why I get is to try and, again, and it makes, what does it make, when Simon Cowell gives out a compliment, how powerful is it to the person who receives it? So much more powerful. Why? Because they know how hard it is to come by a compliment. If you're aware of that power, right, you limit also how much you compliment, because you're aware that when you speak, it holds power. So now you don't compliment just anything. You compliment when you want to compliment. And it can become a power move. This is why I say it can become manipulative, because when you become aware of these behaviors, you can begin to do them. And the thing is, sometimes we do these things subconsciously, right? A program is running behind the scenes and it's coming forward, okay? And sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's subconscious. Either way, it's a program running, right? And so that's where we're seeing this tussle between Miles and Karen. And so, when obviously Karen, and then I think I'm going to move on for that, but we'll come back to another time. When Karen speaks about how, let me just get some water.
kind of like very carefree and whatever. And so the person that Karen is, like, that's somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with. But
it's about obviously Miles, and she wasn't aware that Miles was feeling that way, and she wasn't aware that Miles was going to express his feelings. But she was glad that he did. I think maybe, I don't know if anyone else watched it and felt a certain way. Not felt a certain way, but was like wondering what she was meaning by that, and how she was trying to interpret that. Because I totally agree. I mean, this was a necessary conversation in terms of what he's going through, and to be expressed that. And what I find, I don't want to go too deep, is that Miles is now beginning to share in group, and that's where issues begin. Because the reason why he's sharing in groups now, I believe, is the covering of Karen is being removed. The defense of Karen is starting to be removed.
for a fact, like, oh, I'll spend the rest of my life with Karen. No, I don't know that.
Why? Because I'm not happy. And I'm not just happy, it's a prolonged unhappiness. And now I'm speaking out because I need help and I need someone to change my mind. When you get to that place, this is why the tears were coming from Karen, because she realized it was being really true. You notice that Miles speaks not only to Woody, but he speaks to the boys as well about the situation between himself and Karen. And he openly confesses, and I was like, whoa. He openly confesses that he doesn't know if he's going to be... This is no longer now the experts. Talking to the boys later on, and we'll address that in another video. That, you know, he feels like he doesn't know if him and Karen are going to be forever. He appreciates her, and whenever he speaks to Karen, whenever he speaks to Woody or the boys, notice how he always compliments first. Okay, he always offers condiments first. I say condiments. Offers compliments first, and then he goes into the critique, and there's a but. Okay, so he's not a mean person. He doesn't want to destroy her. He's not trying to break her. But what he's saying is, listen, I'm beginning to be overwhelmed by what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling. I'm starting to drown. And so now he's expressing, okay, openly in open public, that, hey, you know what? The way that I'm feeling about the Karen situation because of this particular aspect of the relationship is making me feel a certain way. And then he tells everybody else. And we've seen this leak start to happen when we saw it with Armani and himself and Woody and Karen conversation at the table. He leaked then. And I said that it will begin a process of leaking until she plugs the gap and creates what I call a safe space. Okay, we'll do a separate video for this, but we can watch one. I'll post a link here as well for safe space as well. Creating an emotional safe space. If you no longer find that your marriage, your relationship is an emotional safe space, I can tell you now that person's going outwardly to begin to speak about their emotional baggage. It's going to happen. It is happening. It will happen. You understand? What was interesting, I think, about the conversation between himself and Karen later on was that, and not just that, in fact, what was interesting, I think, was obviously Karen's response saying that, you know, she was okay almost, like, with him bearing his emotions.
I knew how he was feeling, but I wasn't aware that he was planning to share. But at the same time, like, I'm really glad he did. It just kind of took.
But it was like, again, it's. I don't know. Again, for me, maybe I'm looking too deeply. So I wanna be fair with Karen. Do you get what I'm saying? It's the way that she's structured the sentence, which was like the sentences. She was starting off with like, oh, you know, I didn't know Miles felt that way, and then I didn't know he was gonna share it with the group, and then also now, but I'm kind of happy that obviously that he did. So it's like, are you really happy? Because when you put those two sentences beforehand, Miles never told me, and I didn't know he was gonna share it with the group. I don't know if you're fully happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't see why you can't hold two positions either. You may not be happy the fact that he shared it with the group, but you're also happy the fact that he did, because obviously it freed you to feel the way you're feeling. But obviously I think a lot of us were a bit like, okay, so are you cool with him sharing the emotional aspect or not? Because we know how you felt about that. Again, so yeah, I mean, that was another situation. You know, and I think we're starting to see the deterioration of Miles's affection, or I should say, like I said, protection of Karen. When him and Karen are playing their little game, you can see her gassing her up. And what's really interesting is the fact that Karen, again, can't take compliment. I'm telling you, she can't. Listen, when she's even given out a compliment beforehand, yeah, or you're handsome, last few episodes back, and then Miles like, yeah, she's like, stop it. Now, it's a joke, but it's not, because you've done it more than once. When he said about the red tux situation, about maybe your man's in a red tux, tux, crimson tux or whatever, she was like, stop it, right? We've seen her stop it when he's joking around with a little salt baiting. Stop it, snapping of his hands. Okay, cool. Now we see this situation when he says to her, you're amazing, you're doing well, and she's like, stop it, like, yo, like, it's a joke. She's saying it in a joking format, but you have to pay attention. This person can't take it when they get gassed up. And that's what I'm saying to you, that something isn't quite right. Okay? The therapy needs to come in. Honestly, because your partner cannot be your therapy partner. I mean, your therapist. Your partner cannot become your therapist. I'll tell you why. Because in therapy, there's a need for not only safe space, but sometimes there's a need for someone else who isn't your partner, so you can able to confess some real stuff. I'm talking about the real things, the things that may cut you deep. I'm not saying that you're not good at, you can't be a good therapist. Like, I know myself, I could counsel people. Do you know what I mean? But my own partner, I'm very careful not to psychoanalyze, to become a counselor. And the reason why is because that person, okay, needs another space to be able to be free. You know, and the burdens and the weights of the truth that they may emit to you could crush you. My friend, there's some truths that we all have, the darkness within ourselves. We don't want our partners to ever know. There's some thoughts that come to mind that you should never confess, that will break marriages and break relationships. So there's a need of a vacuum. I call it the black hole, which is your therapist, so you can say things and it goes, it just goes. You know what I mean? Let me get my hat back in order. And that's very important. We all need that space. That's why we have friends. That's why we have therapists. That's why we have counselors and them thing there. You understand? All right, cool. And, you know, again, Karen speaks about how they're missing this emotional connection. And the fact that obviously we're 4 months in, yeah, and we're still only now trying to get the emotional connection. Now I know people are slow, but again, 4 months to develop an emotional connection, like, what have you been doing for the last 4 months? Okay, only now we're starting to have authentic conversations. Why only now?
When authentic, like natural conversations, I think.
Why? What's happened before? Okay, she said obviously now they're going underneath the surface and having the deeper conversations, and I respect that. Do you know what I mean? And you know, it can happen. Some people can take a little bit longer to get get deeper in their conversations. Does it happen often? No. You know, like if it seems like there's always an excuse as to why they are the way they are, and the way that she is as well towards him. And again, this is not me trying to hit it. It's me trying to just understand it and just bring something to you. And so Miles, has said, he finds it hard to balance between clarity of decision day and patience. And this is what I told you guys. And I tell you, I said to you, this is why I said to you that whole trying to blame Miles is very difficult to do so, because he's trying to find the line of balance, which is, do I be patient or do I let you know, cuz where you're moving is a bit mad? And for him, maybe the line isn't so clear. For a lot of us, I think we would say, listen, like Woody said, listen, you keep playing around, listen, I'm going to be gone, because I can't deal with this, right? And this is why I said to you that Karen has to take responsibility. If you know the person is a nice person, why would you allow yourself to take advantage of that person? That says more about you than them. If they are an enabler and you decide to take advantage of the enabler, that says more about you than them. If you go into a shop and the Kit Kat is there and the shopkeeper is bending down below and you take the Kit Kat and don't put the money on the counter and you walk out with the Kit Kat, that's on you, that's not on them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that shows about your heart, not theirs. And so, we're seeing that Miles is struggling to find that balance in terms of, how do I be patient when I'm struggling here? I'm not getting what I need to get. Should I wait it out? Because I may not get what I need to get. I may not get what I need to get out of this relationship. And this is a lesson for all of us as well. That line of finding a balance, whether this guy is a good guy or not, whether this guy is really about, trying to love you or not, it's tough to find. Yeah? It's tough to get. So 3 or 4 months without much of a hug or a kiss, I'm sorry. That's not slow. It's the wrong show. Let me put it that way. It's the wrong show. But even that, if you are dating, this will be scary for somebody. 3 or 4 months. No hug, no real hugs, no real kisses. But we having emotional conversations. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I get it. But that should flow, because by now, as we're having those emotional conversations, you should trust me by now to be able to connect with you on that level as well. Right? Unless, again, I said it again, there was trauma in that space.
But I think that it's a hard balance, right? Between being patient and drawing clarity on decision day. Mm-hmm. Over the past month, I think Karen...
Well, that Miles again is lacking the assurity to make this decision to continue. And I think until he receives that, he's going to find it very hard on D-Day to say yes. Now, what may override his decision to say no and to say yes will be that he lets his feelings of the fact that she's a good-looking gal and that, I don't want to let this big fish get away. Remember, I told you guys, desperation creates us to panic buy. When we think that someone else may not love us, or we think that we may not find another one as good as, we panic buy, because we're trying to make sure that we compensate for the fact that, hey, this may never come again. And so therefore, you end up saying yes, rather than potentially saying, I know my worth, and saying no. We're going to deal with this in a part 2 video. Now we're going to deal with this and we're going to talk about Miles, Mr. Nice Guy, and dealing with the enabler aspect, because that is very important to deal with, how Miles got to that place. Because we understand that Miles' family dynamic created who he is, and why he's so accepting, unlike Woody, who's his best friend, would not accept that situation. And so we're going to deal with some real things in that particular episode, and deal with the other aspects of that episode as well going forward. Guys, do me a favor, make sure you like it, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe. Leave a comment down below. What's your thoughts as well? We don't always have to agree, but let's be respectful. Yeah? I appreciate you. Stay locked, stay loaded. More love.